I want to talk a bit about choosing the right software. Yes, this video is part of Lesson 6, and the primary focus of Lesson 6 is on writing and designing engaging reports. So the immediate context of this brief video is reports and considerations for selecting software to create report components. But frankly, this video extends far beyond just reports. Choosing the right software is an activity that should frame any and every document design project. Whether you're designing the front page or body content of a report, crafting a slideshow presentation, designing a brochure, writing a pamphlet, creating a flyer, etc. I want to start with this. This is an email I wind up writing about once a year to our undergraduate and master's students. Dear citizens, recently I received some variation of this email from at least 10 of you. I hear it's a terrible idea to use InDesign to build your resume, but I don't understand why. You guys need to get this out of your systems right now. InDesign is a page layout program. It's for final finished products, like a poster or brochure or book jacket. You can pose your document in Word or some other word processing application. You can pose your graphics in Photoshop or Illustrator or some other graphic design application. And then you move those components together in InDesign and lay them out. If your resume is ever final and finished, you're in trouble because resumes are living documents that you should need to update on a regular basis. And yeah, you can do some content editing in InDesign, but that isn't the purpose of the program, nor is it ideal. And I'll be frank, 95% of the resumes I see that were crafted in InDesign, the creators or authors have sacrificed key content over design. If I'm thinking of hiring you for an internship or a job and you have a slick designed resume, cool. But I wouldn't necessarily hire you. I'll just think, wow, that's kind of cool, and likely pass you by, especially if the content is suffering because of the over-attention to design. And importantly, InDesign is not sustainable. If you no longer have access to InDesign, you can't recover your files. If someone requests your resume in Word format, which is typical, you're stuck. Because InDesign isn't standard, you can't send anyone a document in native InDesign. And even if you do, you have to be really careful to bundle it so that formatting features, images, font faces, other elements carry with the document. You can generate a PDF, but often employers specifically request a Word document. The only people I know who have a resume in InDesign is people with 5 to 10 years of industry experience who aren't seeking employment and instead are showing off their graphic design or page layout skills. If you want InDesign experience, there are tons of places to get InDesign experience in ways appropriate to the task that you're doing. And here's a quote I found online in a discussion forum where developers were talking about software, and I think this is great advice. Can you build a poster in Photoshop or Illustrator? Yes, technically speaking. Should you? No, because you wouldn't ask a chemical engineer to build a bridge, right? While they have the basis for the skills to do it, you'd call a structural or civil engineer because that's what their specialty is. Same thing with programs. Each is built for a specific function and is best used for that function. So here's a quick breakdown of the types of software and tools you might use to create reports and other types of documents. Word is a word processing application. It's for creating primarily text documents. Although, as you guys found with Module 1, you can really do a lot with Word. It's a pretty powerful document design tool, but its primary purpose is for producing text files. Photoshop is used to edit photographs. Illustrator is used to create illustrations, including shapes, drawings, and logos. InDesign and Publisher, created by Adobe and Microsoft respectively, are desktop publishing applications. They're layout programs where you bring in elements you created elsewhere to lay out a document. And we'll look at examples of the types of documents you create with this software in just a moment. But first, another set of considerations. First, you have to consider what the software is designed to do. Second, you have to consider what you're going to do with your document. What you're going to do with your print document or final product is one consideration, but what you're going to do with the actual files you produce is another. So let's say, for instance, you volunteer with a nonprofit. You do newsletter work for the organization. So you solicit articles and photographs, you write online content, and you do all the layout for the organization's newsletter, which comes out 4 times a year in the Adobe Creative Suite because you have it on your computer. And then something happens. You get pulled away from doing this work. You can't do it anymore. You need to turn all of your archives and files over to the next person. Let's say the next person has only ever used Word and Publisher for word processing and layout. Your files are now relatively useless because Photoshop and InDesign are completely incompatible with Word and Publisher. You might suggest to the organization that they invest in the software you use, but that's like $1,200 and they may not be able to afford it. The lesson here is that you have to think about the sustainability of the work you're creating as part of the software decision-making process. Okay, with the considerations covered, let's talk about some of the software and what it can do. First, Adobe Photoshop. Photoshop is used to edit photographs. Here are two I recently worked on featuring speakers we had come to MSU's campus. These are pieces for some signs I made, decorative signs for a friend when she got married. I don't know if any of you guys play online games or even games installed at the little merit machines at bars, but one of my favorite bar computer games is called Little Shop of Treasures. And I created this image in Photoshop as a passive-aggressive way to try to get my boyfriend to clean up our spare bedroom. This is Little Man Lair of Treasures. Creating celebrity food landscapes was a really popular activity here at MSU a while back. You get 3 images: a photo of food, a photo of a celebrity, and a photo of a landscape. Then you create a celebrity food landscape in Photoshop by merging the images. Photoshop is for altering, editing, and merging photographs. Let's talk a bit about Adobe Illustrator, which is for creating illustrations. Earlier on, I mentioned that Illustrator was a vector graphic program, whereas Photoshop is a raster graphic program. In a vector program, if you have a really simple line drawing like this circle here, well, let's say you created it in Photoshop and you want to make it bigger. If you resize it, you get a really blurry, pixelated image. But if you use a vector-based program like Illustrator, you can create a circle shape, you can re-render it, resize it in any size you want, and the original quality will be retained. So it's a big perk. Illustrator is used for typographic illustration, like these examples. Illustrator is used for fashion illustration, like these examples. Illustrator is used to create the graphical content for illustration-driven websites like these. And Illustrator is also used for creating illustrations, like this from the Cat Owner's Manual, this from an illustrated edition of Fairy Tales of the Brothers Grimm. This is a kid's book about different people and what they do. These are illustrations from a design book of Hindu deities. And Illustrator is also used for creating information graphics. Like this. This is a map of superhero powers. This information graphic explains what font is your city. We see the inner workings of a cup of coffee in this information graphic. This is a resume designed as an information graphic. A set of graphics making up a big information graphic reporting on the last 10 years since our invasion of Iraq. An information graphic on pandemics over time. This is an information graphic reporting on some of the key results of an entrepreneurship report. So that's Illustrator. Illustrator is for line graphics, information graphics, textual illustration, and more. Adobe InDesign, as I mentioned earlier, is a layout program. PageMaker and Quark Express were other earlier similar programs. InDesign is used to create brochures like these. and posters like these. And almost all of the content that you see on magazine covers and inside magazines is created, rendered, laid out in InDesign, like these. So again, remember though, the photographic content here was probably edited in Photoshop. The text was probably written in Word or some other word processing program. And then the document designer took all of these elements and laid them out together in InDesign. I want to talk really quickly about the workflow of a project I worked on recently. Undergraduate research is an activity that's been ramped up at MSU over the last 10 years or so. Our Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education in the College of Arts and Letters runs our program, which is called CAL-URI, the College of Arts and Letters Undergraduate Research Initiative. A couple of years ago, she had her staff do an environmental scan and see what resources they could find on mentoring arts and humanities undergraduate students specifically. They didn't find anything at the time. So the Associate Dean contacted me about creating a resource guide for faculty and students, and I found 2 great students who wanted to work on the project. One, Nicole, took on shaping the design and layout of the booklet. She created mock-ups and style sheets, specking out the typography, the spacing, the graphic elements, and more. The other, Kristen, worked with me on content, and here you can see a capture of a document we worked on in Word. I'm zooming past a lot of reviews and changes to the design and the content, but the final project was compiled in InDesign. I also want to mention briefly software cheats, and here's a big one I do all the time. I use PowerPoint to create flyers. PowerPoint is designed for screen delivery, so it's not optimized for high quality, high resolution print documents, but it does a really good job with text. So often I'll create images in Photoshop or Illustrator and then lay them out in PowerPoint, mainly because it's easier for me to work with, and also because most of the people I work with use PowerPoint, so I can easily share and they can easily edit and update the files if need be. So this is a 1/4-page flyer I created for a faculty event, and we can toggle over to PowerPoint. And this is the full page spread in PowerPoint. Okay, a few takeaways. First, the decision to use a piece of software for a task should always be a well thought out, deliberate choice. That choice should be based on a few factors, including your expertise and comfort with the software, what the software is for, and what it's designed to do, and finally, where the document, especially the raw native files, will go next. And finally, cheat. If you can put Word to use as a page layout program, go for it. If you can use PowerPoint to creatively produce well-designed flyers, go for it. But do so with an awareness that the software wasn't specifically designed for that purpose. So the focus of Lesson 6 was on creating engaging reports. Now that we've looked at some reports along with the work they do and how they do it, you can move on to Module 4, where you guys will use some raw content to design an interior page of an annual report.